Good afternoon. Sairam, Namaste. A very warm welcome to everyone. So I'll just give you a little background about Shri Angajan. For the past 35 years, MK Angajan has been deeply involved in the assimilation of Vedanta and Hindu scriptures, management and leadership philosophy, spiritual literature from the East and West, and psychology. He has inspired and empowered thousands of large and distinguished audiences globally on leadership, management, self-development, life management, and self-fulfillment. He is a prolific and accomplished speaker on Vedanta, a management guru, life coach, and author. Angajan's books entitled Value Systems for Success and From Gods to Godhead, and a number of CDs and DVDs received world recognition. He conducts value-based executive development workshops and seminars for senior corporate personnel, business executives, entrepreneurs, professionals, political leaders, scientists, and other professional groups in many countries, including India, USA, Australia, UK, Canada, New Zealand, Africa, Far East, and Middle East, amongst others. His scientific rationale, practical approach, and passionate presentations grounded by wisdom and expertise have earned him the patronage of many reputed corporations and organizations, including Fortune 500 companies, and many business schools globally. They include, among others, IBM, Mercedes-Benz, Emirates Dubai, the Tata Group in India, the Reserve Bank of India, the Indian Institute of Management, Toyota, Eskom in South Africa, Old Mutual, Legal Aid Board, the South African Police Service, etc. Angajan MK founded the Life Mastery Foundation, which is dedicated to the study, research, and dissemination of values education, principle-centered living, life skills, as well as higher human values, philosophical, cultural, and moral education. I've known Angajan now for over a decade, and I can tell you you're in for a thrill, a wonderful speaker and orator. So join me in welcoming Angajan to address us on the topic for today.
Thank you. We will start with reciting certain mantras, which is the dhyana sloka, the invocation to the Bhagavad Gita.
Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gratitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamritavarshini Bhagavatim Ashtadashaadhyayim नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे हुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयः प्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवैत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दुग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्ससुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयद्रथजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोदीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरणनदी कैवर्तक केशवः पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलं गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटं नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितं लोके सज्जनषट्पदैरहरः पेपीयमानं मुदा भूयाद्भारतपङ्कजं कलिमल प्रध्वांसिन श्रेयसे मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवं। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्त्वैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगा ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः।
My salutations and namaskar to one and all of you. Thank you for this invitation today to be with you for next hour and a half, talking on the topic when prayer becomes your habit, miracle becomes your lifestyle. Prayer, most people consider as an escape mechanism. Very often you find we all become great devotees when we get into some difficulties, some challenges, some problems, isn't it? In fact, the walls of a hospital must have heard much more sincere prayers than the walls of the temple. Because when somebody is in the hospital, everybody we see as God. Nurse walks in, we feel the nurse is a God. Doctor walks in, doctor is a God. When a visitor walks in, visitor also become God. We use prayer as a spare wheel. But ideally, prayer should be used as a steering wheel so that it plays a role in every aspect of our life. You know, a habit is formed through repeated practice, isn't it? And once prayer becomes a habit, our entire system, the biological system, changes. Now, I'm also going to be talking to you about what is true prayer. Our mindset changes, our attitude changes. A lot of people understand prayer that is trying to win favors from God, isn't it? Many people misunderstand prayer as a process that when we pray, we are praying to win favors from God, or trying to influence God's decision in our favor. That is not prayer. Prayer is not a licensed beggary, as many people misunderstand it to be. You know, if you go to India, you'll find two types of beggars. The rich beggars beg inside the temple. The poor beggars beg outside the temple. We go to the shrine, close our palms, close our eyes, and start demanding from God to deliver your desires and wishes. That is not prayer, that is a licensed beggary. Talking about prayer, there are two types of prayer, alright? One is, the right type of prayer is spelled P-R-A-Y, right? But many people, when they pray, they are P-R-E-Y, praying to God for their demands. That is not going to happen. In fact, we don't need to demand, we don't need to ask. When we know what is true prayer. There are two aspects of prayer, or devotion, or bhakti. In Sanskrit, it is called Bahiranga Sadhana, or the external practice of prayer. The second is Antaranga Sadhana, which is the internal practice of prayer. The external prayer, we know, we are all masters of it. The external practice of prayer include, we go to our place of worship, temple, church, mosque, gurudwara, synagogue, wherever it is your prayer of worship, we pray. And in the Hindu culture, our rituals and practices are vast, manifold. We perform Havan, that is the fire worship. We undertake pilgrimages traveling to far off distant shrines like Tirupati, Guruvayur, Shabarimala, Vaishnava Devi. These are all shrines in India. Or you go to Balaji, Badrinath, Mecca, Medina, perform our own rituals in our own way. We perform bhajans and kirtans. We take spiritual vows. They're all the external aspect of prayer. But our prayer becomes incomplete if the external practice of prayer, which is Bahiranga Sadhana, if it is not supplemented with the Antaranga Sadhana, which is the internal practice of prayer, prayer becomes incomplete. You know, when we go to a temple, Hindu temple, right? When we are offering, when we meet the pujari, the priest, they hold the flower pot in front of you and they ask you for your, what do they ask you? Your name, star, etc., isn't it? Your Rashi, your lineage, like Vasishta, or what do you call that? Your Gotra. Gotra, correct. Gotra. And you must pronounce it Gotra, right? Gotra. Once a Hindu from Britain went to the temple and the guru, it's a private conversation between the priest and the devotee, right? And the priest asked him, Gotram? And he said, yes, it's in the car. Old monk. He thought the guru is asking Gotram. Gotram. Old monk, isn't it? Yes. It's in the car. Doesn't know what Gotram is. Alright? He asks you Gotram, right? And then the guru will ask you for sankalpa, to form a sankalpa, isn't it? Have you heard of that? Sankalpa is a pure, noble thought, unpolluted with ego and selfishness. And your sankalpa will manifest. And it's proven, right? Your sankalpa will manifest when we know the true sense of praying, meaning P-R-A-Y, which includes certain internal discipline. Sankalpa is the pure, unpolluted thought. Let me give you an example of sankalpa, right? Supposing you think about a friend, somebody that you didn't meet or you didn't hear about from him or her for last many months, 2-3 months. You think about that person, I wonder how he is or how she is. Suddenly you find that evening the person phones you. Have you experienced that? That is sankalpa. You just thought about the person, the thought was pure, unsullied, unpolluted with the ego and selfishness, and you find these kind of situation manifests. When we go to when we are on a venture, when you're undertaking something, probably you're going for a very important meeting or whatever, we generally go to our elderly people, parents or grandparents, etc., touch their feet. I mean, that's a Hindu culture, as you might know. And the elderly person gives you Ashirwad, blessing, right? Ashirwad. So when they give you Ashirwad, along with that Ashirwad, that blessing, they also express their sankalpa and say, may you be blessed. May your wishes will be fulfilled, right? So they are actually expressing a pure thought. And that pure thought, which is called sankalpa, is very potent, and eventually that manifests. So we ourselves, our desires can be turned into a sankalpa when we pray. Remember, when we pray, as I mentioned to you, the influence of prayer is upon yourself. The impact of your prayer is upon your own mind, upon your own personality. When you pray sincerely, your attitude changes, your thought process changes, your expectations changes, your egoistic notion reduces. Thereafter, your personality is powerful. But then it is not enough to pray external worship. We must also supplement with the antaranga sadhana, the internal aspect of prayer, so that our desires and wishes turn into sankalpa. So what is that type of prayer? That will bring a quantum leap in your mindset, your attitude, everything in your life. There are 4 elements of this prayer. 4 aspects. I would say the 4 pillars of prayer. And these 4 pillars of prayer that I'm talking about, you don't have to be a religious person. Alright? I'm not talking about religion. You can be a religious person, you can be a religious person. You can be an atheist, or you can be a very devoted bhakta, whatever it is. You could be a Hindu, Muslim, Christian, you can be a Jewish, whatever faith you belong to, it doesn't really matter. Now what I'm going to be talking about is something very essential. It is a very important emotional intelligence that every one of us need to master. And this aspect of prayer will help you in your boardroom, in your bedroom, as well as in your prayer room, which you feel. So what is that prayer that our saints and saints envisioned? The 4 aspects of this prayer are, number 1, love. Number 2, the second pillar of prayer is gratitude. The third pillar of prayer is surrender. And the 4th pillar of this prayer is humility. So love, gratitude, surrender, and humility. These are the 4 legs of this table, as it were. I'll try and unpack these 4 words. Love, gratitude, surrender, and humility. Now these words are not unfamiliar to you. We talk about it almost every day. But then very often we tend to miss the deeper essence of these words. When we talk about love, the very mention of the word love, immediately the thought that flashes in our mind is, when we say love, family. We speak to youngsters, the moment we talk about love, immediately they think in terms of falling in love. That is not the love that we are talking about. That is why in Vedanta we say, you ought not to fall in love, you must rise in love. Love is meant to rise, not to fall. Yet you find most people fall so badly, they break their skull and bone. That is not the love that Vedanta wanted to practice. Now this love that most people understand is actually infatuation. Love towards a particular group of people, which could be a family or it could be a group of people. That is not it. Now this love that we are referring to is not a noun, it is actually a verb. Noun is something that you feel. That is not the love. It is a verb. Verb means something that you have to do, something that you have to perform, something that you have to accomplish. Alright? So love is often one of the most misunderstood terminology as to what is love. Most people understand, haven't you heard people say, I am in love? But Vedanta says, never be in love. You must say, love is in me. We got to ask you a question. Are you saying, I am in love, or are you saying, love is in me? When love is in me, that is when it manifests as action, as a verb. Alright? Now, when we talk about love, it is often, it's often said and done. What is that love that we can practice? In fact, it's almost impossible to practice love, because we don't understand what that is. The pure love is rather difficult to understand. But we understand the opposite of love, isn't it? And that is? Hatred. Are you hesitant to say that? Tell me one person amongst you who don't understand hatred. We understand that, isn't it? The easiest way to practice that universal love is pause for before we go and prostrate to the shrine, before we come to the prayer room. Ask yourself this question. The question is there anybody that I'm entertaining ill will, hatred towards? If you ask yourself that question, chances are the answer will be yes. There is somebody in our life who's really, really hurting you. It could be a colleague at work who really gets onto your nerve. It could be somebody in the society, in the community that you had a tussle with. Probably in your organization, wherever it is, there is somebody that the moment we think about that person, immediately the thought vibration comes in our mind is a thought of resentment, dislike, and unhappiness. That is where our prayer begins. Meaning, you got to make sure that you have no ill will, hatred towards anybody, even if you're putting that effort to eliminate that hatred, that is where our prayer begins. Our devotion to God has no meaning if we are entertaining hatred and all the other cousins of hatred. Hatred have got many cousins, right? And who are they? Anger, jealousy, greed, arrogance, vanity, pride, fear. Whole host of negative emotions are associated with that one emotion, one negative emotion called hatred. So it is far more easier for us to eliminate hatred, anger, jealousy, vindictiveness from our heart than practicing love. Because we don't know what the pure love is. The moment we talk about love, we immediately associate with the love that we feel towards our loved ones. That is an emotion. And that emotion is restricted. Today, if you talk about love, like Sheila mentioned, most people only think about my spouse, my children, and my dogs. Alright? We can't think beyond it. If you are lucky, parents also included. Most people, their love is confined to a group of people. That is not the love that we are talking about. Whereas eliminating hatred from your heart. In fact, the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is entitled Bhakti Yoga, the yoga of devotion. Bhakti, devotion. 12th chapter, one of the short chapters, 20 verses, right? And verses 13 to 20 describes 35 qualities of a bhakta, 35 virtues of a devotee of God. What are the 35 virtues of a devotee of God? When you read those 35 qualities of a bhakta, you'll be amazed. He's not asking you whether you are a Hindu or a Muslim or a Christian or whether you are a Chinese or an American or a British or an Indian. You're educated or uneducated, you're male or female. None of those questions are asked. Whether how many times you are praying Sandhya Vandanam, or do you perform, you chant Vishnu Sahasranamam, none of those questions are asked. The very first quality, he says, Adveshta Sarva Bhudana, meaning he who hates no being. The very first quality of a devotee of God is one who does not have hatred towards anybody. And compare that and compare what is happening today. In the name of devotion, in the name of religion, there is far more hatred than anything else in this world. Out of sheer misunderstanding, true religion is supposed to inspire us. But today religion is bringing down barriers. So absence of hatred. Since we don't really understand what is that pure love, we understand what is not love, which is hatred, start practicing. It's something like this. Supposing I come to you, alright? I have a basket full of marbles, hundreds of marbles of two colors. Marbles are blue in color and some of the marbles are red in color. The mix of both, right? I come to you and say, can you please help me? There were hundreds of it, right? Can you please remove all the red marbles out of the mixture of red and blue marbles, right? And immediately you tell me, oh, Angajan, I'm so sorry, I can't help you because I'm colorblind. I can't see red marble. I'm so sorry. Oh, okay, no problem. If that is the case, take away all the blue marbles. Take away all the blue marbles. When you remove all the blue marbles, what remains is red. Isn't it? Similarly, we don't know what it is to love everybody, but we definitely know what is hatred, and we need to start working towards eliminating hatred. And also all the other noble emotions. You know, our mind contains two types of feelings. They are the healing feelings and ill feelings. Right? Ill feelings, as the very term suggests, the negative emotions like anger, jealousy, hatred, arrogance, fear. Healing feelings are positive feelings like gratitude, forgiveness, compassion, charitable disposition, love. They are all healing feelings because they actually heal your life. If you are with a belief system that it is the NHS the hospitals and doctors and nurses and pills and syrup is healing your body, you're mistaken. You're mistaken. What really heals your body, you got to start. I'm not saying you can do away with the doctors and NHS. No, of course we need doctors. Our doctors do an amazing job. My highest reverence to doctors. But it is not the doctors who actually heal. It is your mind that heals your life. It is your thought that actually heal your body, not just the medicine. That is why in India, the best known medicine in the world is Ayurveda. Alright? Where it is, they teach us how our thought heals our body, not just the medicine. And when an Ayurvedic doctor treats, the doctor also enables the patient's noble feelings. In fact, one of my organizers in New Zealand, she's a doctor, Dr. Anju, a great Sai devotee. She says, she has a private practice. And she says, when a doctor comes to her room, usually, here you have NHS, but in South Africa, India and other places where the corporate hospitals thrive on how sick the people are, not how well healed people are, isn't it? When you go to a hospital, by the time you spend 20 minutes with a doctor and you come out of the hospital, you'll become more sick. Because by the time you see the list of tests and all those tests that you need to do, all your medical insurance, everything is over. There's no money for treatment. Will people become more sick or healed? Whereas this doctor says the first thing she does to the patient is make the patient peaceful, make the patient comfortable. Because when the mind is not peaceful, even the medicine will have no effect on the body. If the medicine has to have effect on your body, you need peace of mind. If you need to have peace of mind, you need to consciously cultivate healing feelings. So when we come to the temple and pray, when we go to a church or mosque or any place of worship, the purpose of our prayers of worship is to stimulate healing feelings. So when you are able to stimulate healing feelings, that healing feelings start healing the body. It is not only heals your body, it heals your life. It heals your relationship. It heals your mind. But prayer is misunderstood today as mechanical rituals, blind faith and superstitious belief. As a result, neither the prayer nor the person who's praying has got any influence. So therefore, we got to make sure that we cultivate healing feelings. Now remember, the healing feelings, it is a choice that you stimulate. Like forgiveness. The opposite of forgiveness is revenge, vindictiveness. One of the most deadly negative emotions. That feeling that you want to get back at the person who hurt you. So when you entertain revenge, who goes through the pain? Nothing is happening to the other person. You are actually stewing in your juice. When you cultivate negative feelings like revenge, anger, hatred, bitterness, and fear, all of these negative emotions will make your body more sick. Prayer is meant to heal your body, wherein you cultivate the love, forgiveness. When you pray, some of the universal prayers are Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu, isn't it? May all the being in all the world be happy. Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu. Let everybody exist. Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu. Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu. Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu. Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina. We are wishing the welfare of everybody else. Right? When you genuinely wish for other people's welfare, other people's healing, other people's goodness, even if it is your enemy, right? So when you come to the temple or places of worship, ask yourself, is there one person that you have ill will towards? If the answer is yes, before you leave home and go and sit in the car to come to the place of worship, send positive thought towards that person. Pray for that person. May he be successful. May she be happy. May he be peaceful. Now, by you praying for your enemy's happiness and success, will you lose anything? Hello? You lose nothing. All that we need is a little bit of control over our ego. Our ego will resist to pray for your enemy, to pray for your... If you have the ability and mental stamina to genuinely wish happiness and success and goodwill for that rival, that is when your life begins to heal. Right? Now, try to practice that. Try to practice that. You know, I know it's very difficult to do that, but nothing is impossible by practice. So if you are able to practice that, after 21 days of attempt, you will find you have no hatred towards that person. And you see what happens. Miracles happen in your life. You know, there are many cases, I'm sure many of you are familiar with the situation where, you know, they are diagnosed with some dreaded diseases and the doctors have written off. No cure. Nothing can be done. And within a matter of 3 to 6 months, doctors cannot explain that the person is completely healed. Have you come across it? Have you heard of situations like that? Hello?
Yeah.
You did. Alright? You know why? Because when a person gives up, that is when the person is totally detached. The person is totally detached. When the mind develops a detachment, that hatred, ill will, anger, jealousy, all of those negative emotions goes, our body starts healing. Our life starts healing. Alright? So prayer is a process of healing your life. Process, you know, these sages and saints, our prophets and sages and saints in ancient times, conceive the practice of prayer as a process of healing. So when you genuinely pray, the effect is upon your body, effect on your mind. So absence of hatred and all those negative emotions. Remember, negative emotions are very contagious. One of the most infectious disease in the world, if you think it is corona, you got it wrong. Or AIDS. Of course, they are infectious. But something far more infectious than corona, Ebola, AIDS, all of those is human emotions. Like anger, hatred, jealousy. They're highly contagious. I would like to call them ETD. That is emotionally transmitted diseases. We are all worried about STD. There are hundreds of millions of pounds spent trying to find cure for STD like HIV and AIDS. But what we don't realize that we are already infected with the human emotion. So along with your medical treatment, of course, whatever that you go through, right? You also need to cultivate healing feelings in your mind. And when you cultivate healing feelings, and it becomes a habit, after that, sometimes medical science has no explanation how you are healed. Absence of hatred. Prayer also means breaking down barriers. Today, humanity is building more and more barriers. First of all, we have religious barriers, which is a gross discrimination. Hindus, Muslims, Christians, and Buddhists, and what else? Jewish. Gross, of course, you may want to believe in your faith. I would like you to believe in your faith and culture, no problem. But just because you believe in your faith and culture, that's no reason that you develop ill feeling towards a culture that doesn't belong to yours. Your faith in God becomes absolutely meaningless. Just because somebody else is following a different faith or different culture, right? And they don't follow your path. And if you are entertaining ill feeling or not tolerate their feeling, that is not bhakti. That will only bring more and more and more misfortune. So true prayer is that ability to recognize divinity in every human being, every living being for that matter. Again, practice. To realize that it is the same divinity in me that enabling my enemy to speak, to do whatever it is. Once in the ancient, olden times in India, during the king's regime in India, before the king comes to the darbar, the parliament, they go to a room called a mirror room. Before they decked up with the expensive robe, diamond-studded crown and all that, all decked up before they appear to the public. They go to a mirror room. The mirror room is fitted with the mirrors on all the 6 sides, including above and below, right? So when the king entered the mirror room, And obviously, since mirrors are facing each other, you find the reflections are manifold. Hundreds of reflections, isn't it? The king entered the mirror room and he looked on the left side. He could see hundreds of his own reflections. Right? And he looked at those reflections and he admired himself. That is his own reflection. And then he looked on the right side. There also he saw hundreds of his own reflections. And looked in front. He saw hundreds of his own reflections. He admired himself in all of those reflections. And he looked above, looked below. All those reflections he saw that it is his own self that is reflected everywhere. And he admired himself and came out of the room. This used to be the custom every other day. Alright, before he come to the parliament. One day, when he went to the mirror room, alright, he came out of the room and he forgot to close the door. Kept the door open. And in the palace there was a dog, the king's pet, alright? And the dog thought, there was only one dog in the whole palace, the whole kingdom, up in the palace. And the dog thought, I am the king, alright? And the dog entered the mirror room. When the dog entered the mirror room, the dog also saw hundreds of his own reflections. And the dog didn't like it. The dog started barking. And all the other dogs started barking back at him because of the reflection, because of the echo in the room, right? The glass. The echo is very high. And the dog felt bitter, anger, hatred towards all those other dogs. And the dog started jumping. All the other dogs jumped back at him. And the anger and bitterness has only increased further. Alright? The dog started barking, the dog started biting, jumping. It was ballistic in the mirror room. Eventually, the dog started breaking the glasses out of a desperation. And the dog started cutting himself with the broken glasses. Eventually, after about half an hour of barking and struggling, the dog dropped dead in a pool of blood. Now, what is the difference between the king entering the room and the dog entering the room? When the king entered the mirror room, the king knew that it is my own reflection that is reflected everywhere. So when the king saw the other reflection, the king knew that is my own reflection. But when the dog entered the mirror room, the dog did not know that it is my own reflections everywhere. As a result, the dog started hating the other dog. The dog started, felt jealousy, got angry, and eventually, who killed the dog hurt himself. Similarly, live in the world like the king, not like the dog. Meaning, that ability to realize that it is my own self, the Atman, the divinity, God principle in me, is the same God principle that is reflecting everywhere. That is where the true prayer is. But today what happens is, we are all great bhaktas, devotee of God in the place of worship. The moment we step out, we start with the gossip. What's the point? True prayer is our ability to eliminate hatred. Eliminate all those negative emotions, anger, jealousy, hatred, etc. The absence of hatred. And then you'll find literally miracles happen in your life. Once there was a great devotee. His name was Abu. Right? Abu was fast asleep one night. And as he was fast asleep, an apparition, an angel appeared in the room. Right? And Abu woke up from his sleep and he saw the angel in his room. And Abu was not worried. He was not scared. And the angel was writing something. And Abu asked, "What writest thou? What are you writing?" asked the angel. And angel said, "I'm writing the list of people who are devoted to God. Alright, I'm preparing the list of people who love God." And Abu asked the angel, Am I one? Am I one of those who are devoted to God? Nay, not so. Your name is not there. You're not one of those who are devoted to God. Sorry, your name is not there. And Abu even more peacefully said, "Alright, please write my name as one who loves his fellow man. Don't write my name as one who is devoted to God. But please write my name as one who loves his fellow man." Alright? One who doesn't have hatred towards people. And the angel agreed. Angel agreed to write Abu's name as not one who is devoted to God, one who loves his people, loves his fellow men. Alright? Angel took the list. And next day night again the angel appeared in the room, and the angel brought the list of people to whom love of God had blessed. And Abu's name was right on top. He never claimed that he is devoted to Christ or Krishna, Buddha, Mahavir, none of those. He genuinely said, I do not have hatred towards people. I serve people. I love people. So you can claim, all of us can claim, I'm very devoted to God. Why? Because every morning I bow down to Ganesha or Muruga or whichever deity that you want to worship, right? Every day. That doesn't mean your devotion to God. Alright? The question is, does God love you? The only way to win God's love is to eliminate hatred so that we do not have ill feeling towards anybody. And it is true, it is so essential because that is why in ancient times they say Vasudha eva kudumbakam, Vasudha eva kudumbakam. The world is one family. Alright. So our devotion begins when we realize that the whole universe is one family. What we call global village. Ancient times the sages and saints called it Vasudeva Kudumbakam. The world is one family, isn't it? So when we genuinely concerned about other people's welfare, that is when it protects us. There's a saying, Dharmo Rakshati Rakshita. Dharma protects those who protect Dharma. Dharmo, it's one of the quotations from the Vedas, Samaveda, right? Dharmo Rakshati Rakshita. Dharma protects those who protect Dharma. When we have genuine care, concern for the other people, miraculously you will find miracles happens in your life. Don't ask how sometimes. Once in a particular factory, there were hundreds of workers working in that factory. And in the morning, factory opened. It was a warehouse, cold storage. They stored food products. About 8 o'clock, there are hundreds of workers and the management staff come into the premises, and there is a gate. Everybody, what you call swiping. And there is a security guard. His name was Charles. Charles' timing was from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. in the evening. He comes at 6 o'clock in the morning, leaves at 6 o'clock in the evening. That was his schedule, right? So hundreds of people walk in, right? Charles used to sit and watch people walking in. Nobody cared for him. Nobody felt even the existence of Charles except one lady. Only one lady every day, as she walks in, she will greet Charles. Good morning, Charles, how are you? And the evening, 4 o'clock, when employees leave, she would greet Charles. Hello, Charles, have a good night, we'll see you tomorrow. Every day, without fail. And Charles used to wait for that greeting. He felt that I'm somebody just because one person greeted that person. Charles, that's all she did, right? Just a concern, a goodwill, genuinely. When you wish somebody good morning, genuinely mean it. Do we really mean it when you say good morning to somebody? We don't. We just as a casual thing. When you say good morning, we need to genuinely wish goodness for that person, right? So this lady would greet Charles every morning. And this went on for many, many months. And Charles used to wait for that greeting from the lady. At least she recognized that person. That's all that he felt, right? And it went on. And one day, as usual, the lady came and greeted Charles. And the evening when everybody left, all right, he's waiting for that greeting from the lady, all right? He didn't get the greeting. And he knows for certain that she came into the premises. It's a cold storage, all right? And she did not leave in between. Everybody left. The entire office is closed. But he got concerned. Where is this lady now? She did not leave the premises, right? And afterward, he waited for about 4:30 till 5 o'clock still. Maybe she's got some extra work. She's finishing the work and leaving a little late. No, none of those. And he went from office to office, peeped through the window, and he had the key. Whatever key he opened the rooms of the offices. He's not there. The lady's not there. And then he got really, really concerned where she is. And he started opening the warehouse, the storeroom, the cold room. He opened cold room 1, 2, first 6 he opened. When he opened the 7th room, the cold room, she saw the lady got stuck inside the cold room. When she went inside the cold room, right, she didn't lock the room. When you open the cold room, you lock it and then go inside. But she forgot to lock it and the door got locked from behind. And you can't open the cold room door from inside. You can only open it from outside. And it is sealed. And, it was to seal from outside. She banged the door, nothing, nobody can hear. And she was stuck in the cold room. And when he opened, he was almost on the verge of death, suffering from hypothermia. Right? Immediately, Charles alerted the people, and everybody came, took her to the emergency hospital, emergency ward, etc. And her life was saved. All right? 2 days later, when lady came to work, she met Charles, and she asked, Charles, how did you know that I am stuck in the house, inside the room? And Charles said, ma'am, there are about over 400 people walks in every day. 400 people walks out every day. You were the only lady who greeted me. Good morning, Charles. Good evening, Charles. Have a good evening. I used to wait for that because I felt somebody, when you greeted me. But this particular day, when I did not get you greeting, I was missing. I knew that in the morning you greeted me, in the evening I didn't get your greeting, and I knew you're somewhere here. I started searching. That is how I found you. A simple goodwill towards somebody sometimes can save your life. Don't underestimate it. So when we say greeting, when we say good morning or Sai Ram or Namaskaram to somebody, it becomes just a habit for us, isn't it? But we can cultivate. Now, you don't have to cultivate. It can be a rank outsider. You're walking the shopping or somebody coming on the other way. Just send a prayer for that person. May he be peaceful. May she be peaceful. May he be. But to do that, does it cost anything? It doesn't cost you time. It doesn't cost you money. It doesn't cost nothing. Only it takes a little bit of charitable disposition. A little bit of goodwill towards the other people, isn't it? Just that, it's a true story, just an act of greeting that person, that security guard, whose security guard is somebody whom a lot of people don't give undue importance to, because they don't have much work to do except watching who's coming and going. That's about it. The breaking down barriers, genuinely sending goodwill towards the other people. That's why they say Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the world is one family. Genuinely thinking about the welfare. See, we may not be able to take on the world to help everybody, but definitely we can send goodwill prayers towards the other people. Once there was a farm, a particular farm. In that farm there were many animals living together. There was the chicken, there was the cow, there was the pig, there was the rat, all of those animals living happily. One day, the farmer's wife brought a rat trap, right? Rat trap, small little device. And the rat sitting inside the hole saw the farmer's wife bringing a rat trap. And the rat panicked, all right? Panic-stricken rat ran up to the chicken and said, listen, we are in trouble. Chicken asked, what do you mean? We are in trouble. What happened? He said, farmer's wife brought a rat trap. Oh, rat trap. I mean, how does that affect me? Look at me, I can fly. Rat trap, you must be careful because it is a rat trap. Chicken can't even fly, and the chicken believes that he can fly. And the chicken said, you must be careful, hope you have insured yourself. That's what the chicken said. Chicken was not interested to help the rat. And rat eventually ran up to the pig, all right? And said, piggy, you are in trouble. What happened? A farmer's wife got a rat trap. Rat trap? How can rat trap affect me? Look at my size, I'm nice and round. How can the rat trap affect me? You got to be careful, all right? If anything happen to you, I will, take care of your family. That's what the pig said. Pig did not bother about rats. And eventually, rat ran up to the cow and said the same thing. We are in trouble. Cow asked, what happened? What do you mean we are in trouble? Farmer's wife got a rat trap. Rat trap. How can that small device affect me? Look at my size, so big I am, all right? if anything happened, I will take care of your funeral. That's all the cow said. Nobody, they all gave lip service to the rat. Nobody genuinely cared for it. That night, in the farm, there was a noise, as if the rat trap was clicking, right? And everybody, the chicken, the pig, the cow, all of them heard the noise. They were very sympathetic for the rat. And the lady of the house also heard the sound. Midnight, pitch dark, and the lady got up to see what was actually trapped on the trap. And she didn't know exactly where the trap was kept, right? So she stumbled upon the rat trap. It was actually a poisonous snake that got trapped, right? And she was bitten by the snake. Poisonous snake. And she was bitten, and she was poisoned, snake poisoned. And next day, early morning, she was suffering from high temperature and other complications, etc. Early morning, doctor was rushed in. And the doctor examined her, and the situation is very complex, very challenging situation. And the doctor said, you must immediately prepare some chicken soup. Alright. They killed the chicken. Alright. And she was bedridden. Alright, bedridden, and many friends and visitors started coming. And in order to feed the friends and visitors, they killed the pig, the family members. 2 weeks later, the lady died. And during the funeral, to feed the people, they killed the cow. The only survived animal was the rat, because all the other animals thought it's only rat's problem. Our selfishness is so deep-rooted, but that we are not genuinely concerned about welfare of everybody. I'm not saying you must write your checkbook and give money to it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying you invest your time, but start with genuinely cultivating that feeling that, no, I cannot survive in this world on my own. I need to genuinely think about, at least start feeling, and then you find it manifesting in the action. Genuinely concerned about the welfare of people, right? It could be a random outsider, like I mentioned. You meet somebody, may he be happy, may she be happy. But what happens today, when we meet somebody, just because that person is rich or poor or whatever it is this differentiation that manifests. It's our own ego that expresses, isn't it? So the first of the 4 elements is love, absence of hating. The second is gratitude, and the spirit of thankfulness. I would say the attitude of gratitude is the mother of all the positive attitudes. That spirit of gratitude from which all the noble emotions emanate. It is the most, if there is one mental disposition, or I would say, if there is one healing feeling you cannot do without, is the spirit of gratitude, is the spirit of thankfulness. Alright? The problem is we take our life for granted. When we are taking everything for granted, that is an expression of ingratitude. That is why William Shakespeare said in his play Julius Caesar, right? When Julius Caesar was assassinated by Brutus and his conspirators, right? One of the conspirators is Cassius, who's the first one who stabbed. And he said, and Mark Antony, the famous orator, came to speak on Julius Caesar's funeral, all right? And he saw, where envious Casca stabbed him, deep wound. And, Cassius was Caesar's angel, because Cassius received a lot of benefit from Julius Caesar, and then he killed him. And then Mark Antony says, Shakespeare says, ingratitude more strong than traitors' arms were to vanquish him. Ingratitude more strong than traitors' arms were to vanquish him. Meaning, to be ungrateful is the worst crime you can ever commit. Let that sink in. Ingratitude more strong than traitors' arms. What he's saying is, just imagine, you received a lot of favor from somebody. Alright, somebody done a lot of favor to you, and you go and stab the person from behind. You think that is atrocious? If you think that is atrocious, to be ungrateful is a worse crime than killing a benefactor. Our Mahabharata says you can have expiation for cutting down tree. In ancient times, even cutting down tree for no reason is considered a crime. You can have expiation for cutting down tree. You can have expiation for killing a Brahmin, killing a high specification of human being, but there's no expiation for ingratitude. There's no atonement for ingratitude. And yet you find we are generally ungrateful. An attitude of gratitude. So when you come to pray, when you close your eyes, close your palms and pray, very carefully listen to your own voice. What are we asking? Prayer is meant to express your gratitude for all the blessings that you've received. And the blessings that you and me have received are countless. I'm talking about the blessings that money cannot buy. There are numerous blessings. So prayer is when you count your blessings and come to the prayer place, the place of worship, and you express your gratitude to the God of your understanding. Whichever way you want to conceive God, that is your choice. No problem. But then you got to express that deep sense of gratitude. So how to practice gratitude? You got to remember 2 words. Only 2 words, that's all that you need to remember. Alright? The 2 words are think and thank. It's not difficult to remember. Think and thank. Now what do you think? Think of all the blessings that you have. The blessings that money cannot buy. And thank the providence. When you complain about your spouse, when you complain about your spouse's behavior that is not according to the way you wish, think about millions of people who are lonely, who are trying to get a companionship. Yes or no? It's a fact. They are literally, there are plenty in the world, they can't find a partner. They feel so lonely. When you complain about your children, not the way you want them to be, when you complain about the indiscipline of your children, think about millions of couples in the world who don't have children. Your indisciplined children is the dream of many couples who don't have children. Your unpalatable partner that you claim is the dream of many people who don't have a companion. When you complain about your house being so small, if you're complaining, think about the homeless people. The dream of the homeless people is your small home. When you complain about your difficult job, that your difficult job is the dream of millions of unemployed people. When you complain about, too many dishes to wash, think about the people who don't have food to eat. Our mind, because it is selfish, it is always focused upon what we don't have. Doesn't count the blessing of what we have. So true prayer is expression of gratitude. So when you come to the place of worship, your heart must be filled with the spirit of gratitude. Your heart must be saturated with the spirit of gratitude. Despite the problems and difficulties that we go through, there's plenty to be grateful for. There's a saying, I had no shoes and complained until I met a man who had no legs to walk. I had no shoes and complained until I met a man who has no legs to walk. But our focus always upon one thing that we don't have, and we totally ignore the countless blessings that we have. Gratitude. It's not difficult. It is so simple, but again, you need to develop a practice. To be grateful, it is something that you need to constantly practice. As soon as you wake up, all right? There's always a time gap between waking up and getting up, right? Most people, when they're awake, we linger on the bed for about 5 to 10, minimum 5 minutes, sometimes half an hour, 1 hour. Especially in winter, isn't it? You're awake, but it's so cold outside, and you cover yourself with the blanket 5 more minutes. Just difficult to pull yourself out of the bed, isn't it? This is what I would call mind over mattress. Right? Just go stuck in the mattress. Very difficult. As soon as you're awake, the very first thought should be the thought of gratitude that I have one more day. Even if your job is difficult, I have a job that I can rely upon. You know, I'm sure you have spoken to also to people who have no job. Just try to get to their mind when they see people who are unemployed for many months, sometimes even years together, when they see everybody driving by, you know what their dream is? I wish I could also drive to work like that. But when you have a job, you are thinking, oh, my boss is difficult, or my job is very far. You know, when you complain about your job being very far, 1 hour drive, think about the same distance people walk every day to work. I don't know if they do it here. Many of the developing countries, in India and other places, India is no more, I won't say developing country, it is more than developing country. I don't know what to put it right. We can't call ourselves developed yet, right? There are people who walk to 1.5 to 2 hours every day to work. You're only driving to work for 1 hour, isn't it? When you don't count that blessings, that Shakespeare says is ingratitude. So when you got to develop that acute awareness of your blessing, it is a habit. You make that into a habit, right? And habit is when anything becomes a habit through repeated practice. Initially you will find it difficult, but when you continue to do that, not even once you will feel complaining about your life, because your mind is always upon the good things that are happening in your life. Your mind will refuse to think about the negative things. See, the truth of the matter is that every single one of us, even the happiest person that you know, have got problems and difficulties. That happy person is trained himself or herself to focus upon the good things. As a result, that person is happy. It's as simple as that. It's a matter of training your mind. So prayer is meant to train your mind. Prayer is meant to reprogram your mind to focus upon the blessings that we have. Blessings that the money cannot buy. You know, you might complain about, oh, I can't take my family to a classy restaurant every weekend. It's very expensive. But think about, you can eat whatever you have. Isn't it? Whatever basic food. In fact, the simplest food is the tastiest food. If you really get into the level of eating, the true eating, the simplest food. You don't need to go to an exotic restaurant, especially fine dining, as the Britons call it. Fine dining. Maybe about 6 or 7 years ago, when I was invited to UK for a conference, and I always stay with Seal and Wani, and then I finished the discourses, and last session was a conference, and they took all of us for fine dining. And it's a very classy restaurant for fine dining. And they brought us a huge plate covered with a nice covering, etc. And the butler or the waiter comes and very stylishly lifts it, and a small samosa and a little bit of sauce. Fine dining. That's not the way we serve food in India, isn't it? Anyway, you might say you can't take your family to for fine dining, but at least whatever little bit of food that you're able to enjoy. Let me tell you, I know a person in Mumbai. He's suffering very rare disease. 1 in 10 million people suffer from this disease. Very rare. This disease is paralysis of the esophagus. Esophagus is paralyzed. His entire body is perfect, except the esophagus is paralyzed. Meaning, when your esophagus, that pipe that takes the food to the stomach, right? It's a set of muscles that function, take food to the stomach, right? The food reaches the stomach because of this muscle's function, not gravity. Meaning, even if you stand upside down and eat, food will still reach the stomach. But don't try it. Alright? Now, this person, esophagus is paralyzed, muscles don't work, which means he has not eaten food for about 6 years. You may wonder how he survives. All the food and nutrition is reached the intestine, right? Through pipe. Body is perfect. Digestive system is perfect. Evacuation is perfect. Urine, everything is perfect except esophagus. Now, one of the most important enjoyment, I would say permissible enjoyment, is taste. Isn't it? He can't taste. You know what he does? His family prepare, if there is a family get together or whatever it is, every day, at least twice or thrice, every day he chew the food and spit it. He put the food in the mouth, chew it. It's paralyzed. He can't swallow. He just chews and spit it. If you want to know what frustration is, try this. When you're really hungry, you come back from work very late, right? You're really hungry, and your wife has prepared, I'm talking to men, right? Your wife has prepared really good food, and if you want to know what frustration, try this. Chew the food and spit it out, don't swallow it. Now that is what this persons go through because it's paralyzed. But thank God, we can swallow, our digestive system, everything is functioning. So now you got to count, our physical system, such an incredible creation. How many hundreds of things can go wrong in our body, isn't it? But thank God our body is functioning. One dysfunction can cost us hundreds of thousands of pounds. Hundreds of thousands of pounds. Do we count those blessings? Very often not. So the second element of prayer is count your blessing and express your gratitude. So when we come to the place of worship, make sure that your prayer should include gratitude, a spirit of thankfulness, an attitude of gratitude. Doesn't take much effort, it's just a matter of practice, right? The third element, the third pillar is surrender. Surrender is easier said than done. Our sages and saints in ancient times had ingeniously devised a system to develop the attitude of surrender. Now, this spirit of surrender is not a religious practice. Now, this spirit of surrender will help you in your boardroom when you're making a very important decision. It will also help you in your bedroom, in your kitchen, everywhere, every aspect of life. Now, the opposite of surrender is when our ego overtakes, right? When our ego overpowers. Ego is a saboteur. When the ego is controlled, ego manifests as self-confidence, self-esteem. And when you have self-esteem, it is much easier for us to surrender. See, surrender is something, you're not surrendering to an idol of a deity that you're worshipping. In Hinduism, idol is the worship of idol. It's a very scientific practice. Like any other religion, we know there's only one God. There's only one supreme reality, and that God is the essence of Christianity. And that supreme reality is the essence of Islam, essence of Buddhism, Hinduism, or any Ism for that matter. There's only one supreme God. But in Hinduism, we have so many idols and deities. These deities are only a known symbol to represent the unknown supreme reality. God is unknown, we don't know what that is. Since it is unknown, we need a known symbol to represent the unknown supreme reality. So when we worship an idol or a vigraha, when we worship a murti, that vigraha or murti or idol is a symbol representing the ideal. The idol is not the ideal. The idol represents the supreme ideal, which Christians call Father in Heaven, Muslims call Allah, Hindus call Brahman, the supreme reality. You can call what you want, doesn't really matter. It's not the name that matters, but that understanding that there seems to be some supreme intelligence. To that supreme intelligence, my gratitude. And to that supreme intelligence, we surrender. In the areas that we do not know, in the area that we are not capable of, we learn to surrender. In the areas that we know, in those areas that we have knowledge, we have the ability, our ability must be protected by humility. So surrender and humility. Now surrender, we need to practice that spirit of surrender in every aspect of life. It's not a religious practice. See, remember, however intelligent you are, however powerful you are, you may have powerful contacts in the city. However rich and wealthy you are, there will come a time, our power, our intelligence, our wealth, everything that we relied so much upon will be tested. There can come a time, all those money, the contact, the knowledge, education, degree, quality, none of them will come to your rescue except your spirit of surrender. For that, we need to practice surrender every day in our place of worship. Just imagine this, right? Yourself and your best friend and your father. Yourself, your best friend and your father. All three of you are on a trekking expedition. You're trekking on some of the hill stations, right? And your best friend and your father, both of them are stumbled upon the nests of poisonous vipers, deadly poisonous snakes. Alright? And both of them are bitten by the snake. And you're deep in the hill station. Alright? There's no communication available. Both of them are bitten by snake. And you had thoughtfully carried one shot of antivenom in your backpack, enough for one person. Whom will you administer? Who will you inject that antivenom? Will you say, my friend, I only met him for the last 5 years. My father, he's 60, I want to save him. Will you say that? Or will you say, my father is 70, he can afford to go, let me save my friend? When I asked this question to a group of youth, right, one bright spark put his hand up and said, I will save that vaccine for myself, antivenom for myself, because if I get bitten, I inject myself. All right. Now, I'm not seeing an answer, right? Here's a situation. 2 people are bitten by a poisonous snake and you have one shot of antivenom. You're in a dilemma. All right? You may not encounter such dilemmas, but we do encounter dilemmas where we don't know how to make decisions, right? Now, this is where surrender comes in. Now, when the problem, when dilemma, when this complex situation arises, you will not be able to practice surrender unless you practice that surrender every day in your place of worship. Alright? A spirit of surrender to make decisions. Complex situations. Remember in the Mahabharata, one of the most revered character one of the most revered women in the Hindu tradition is Draupadi in the Mahabharata. Draupadi and Krishna had a very beautiful relationship. Draupadi was one of the great devotees of Krishna. And Bhagavan Shri Krishna told her that whenever you are in trouble, just call my name, I'll be there. Alright? And you know the story. When Dushasana, Duryodhana's brother, dragged Draupadi by her hair and dragged her to the parliament. Alright? Dragged Draupadi to the parliament. And in front of all the wise men, Drona, Bhishma, Kripa, and all the other, I'm talking about the, noble people, they're all waiting, they're sitting and watching, right? And Dushasana and the Kauravas team attempted to derobe her, to destroy her modesty, right? Attempted to derobe. And the more she clung on to her clothes, the more she was overpowered. And eventually, when she realized her helplessness, she let loose her hand and she called out, "Oh Krishna!" And then miracle happened. You know the story, isn't it? The sari became longer and longer and longer and longer. The more they dragged her clothes, the more it became long. It became longer. Eventually, her modesty was protected. Right? You might say that is a story. Yes, that is a miracle. But remember, yesterday's miracle is today's science. Thousands of years before, all right? Although in the Ramayana we know Ravana had his own private plane, all right? And many scientists thought, don't you know metal can't fly? Today, we're flying in a luxurious cabin. What was miracle thousands of years ago, it's a science today, right? So the point is, when Draupadi totally surrendered, miracle happened. Her modesty was protected, isn't it? Now the point is that, intellect, logic cannot explain that, right? Now that is where devotion, surrender comes in. Same thing happened in the Ramayana when Sita was kidnapped by Ravana. Sita was adamant that I want that golden deer. And the Rama said, okay, I'll chase and get it for you. That is when Ravana came and kidnapped Sita. And when Sita was kidnapped and when she was taken to Lanka, she was sitting in Ayodhya, Ashoka Vatika. And she refused to accept anything that Ravana offered. Ravana offered her the world and he could give, because Ravana had a harem from heaven, but he missed Sita. Alright? He wanted Sita to be his queen, but Sita refused. And one of Ravana's well-wishers advised Ravana, listen, there's only one way you can approach Sita. Alright? And he advised, you assume the form of Rama and approach Sita. She'll fall for it. But Ravana said, I tried that also. But the problem is, the moment that I assume the form of Rama, my lust disappears. Right? What the point he says. So when Sita was in that helpless situation, she single-pointedly surrendered to Lord Ram. And then came, miracle happened. Hanuman came. She thought that was the end of Sita's life. The only thing she did was single-pointedly surrender to Ram. Hanuman came with a ring of Rama, isn't it? Now, what we need to understand is that when we genuinely train our mind to surrender, right? It is easier said than done. It takes sometimes months or even years to genuinely surrender without ego and selfishness, and you will find things that you least thought you could do, or things that you least expect will happen to you. Surrender. The fourth element is humility. Remember, your ability without humility is a liability. Today's education, unfortunately, makes our children more egoistic and arrogant than otherwise. Truly educated children display a great sense of humility. I repeat, truly educated children, their education doesn't get in their head. Today, very often you find children, when they are educated, they disrespect their own parents who made so much of sacrifice for the children. Especially I've come across many parents who, they're not so well off. They put every single cent they have in their children's education. And once the children are educated, they go to a different city, different country, and the parents have to go and resort to old age home. And they don't even show reverence or respect to the parents. True education, true knowledge develop a spirit of humility. Some of the greatest of men of knowledge, some of the greatest accomplished people, their lives were characterized by a sense of humility. I'm talking about the sages and saints. If I'm talking about some of the great scientists like Einstein, the Newtons and Edisons of the world, you find their sayings, their article, what they've written, dripping with humility. True wisdom, true knowledge genuinely makes us humble. Once Einstein, when he became the celebrity scientist, right? He was waiting in the bus station. He still lived a very simple life, humble life. Still, there are many billionaires in India, who still live a very humble life. So anyway, Einstein was waiting in the bus station. He was waiting in the queue. There was a man right in front of him. He was holding a sizable book on physics. He was holding it like this on his shoulder, right? And Einstein, being a scientist and physicist and mathematician, etc., he saw it's a book on physics. It's a book on physics. And he got interested. He got the person's attention. Excuse me, sir, is that a book on physics? And the man in front who was holding the book said, yes, it's a book on physics. I'm a doctor of physics. And Einstein said, oh, pleased to meet you, sir. I'm a student of physics. What reacted? Einstein, having loaded by his knowledge, right? He says, I'm still a student of physics. There's a saying, you need to learn a lot to know how little we know. Alright? How little we know. When we realize the magnitude of the universe, we will realize the relative insignificance of our personality. When we talk about these galaxies, they say, the astronauts say, that there are about 200 million galaxies. They project there are 200 million galaxies. Out of that, one galaxy is this galaxy, Brahmanda, or whatever that Vedas call it. Alright? In that galaxy is one little speck is the solar system, in which the sun is in the center and 9 planets are beautifully revolving around. One speck. Alright? In that solar system, one little tiny ball is Earth. Isn't it? And in that Earth, on that Earth, 75% is water, only 25% is land. Isn't it? Did I get it right? Somewhere there, right? And 25% only is land. In that land, right, one little island is called United Kingdom. Isn't it? In that United Kingdom, one country is England. Isn't it? And in that one country, how many provinces? Is there a province?
Yeah, Buckinghamshire.
Sorry?
How many?
Is there provinces like we have in South Africa?
We call them counties.
Counties.
Yeah.
Correct. There are different counties, and Milton Keynes is one of the counties.
No, it's a city within the county of Buckinghamshire.
Okay, correct. Buckinghamshire is the county. In that county, one town is Milton Keynes. In that Milton Keynes, one person. And so much of importance, so important. Compare that importance to the galaxy. Then we realize our relative insignificance. That doesn't mean to say we are nobody. That's not it. Alright? When ego sets in, we tend to compare ourselves with the other people. And we feel, I am superior. When you compare yourself to the people who are inferior to you, you suffer from a superiority complex. When you compare yourself with the people who are superior to you, or you believe you are superior, you suffer from an inferiority complex. Both are useless. You are neither superior. None of us are superior to anybody. How brilliant you are, none of us are inferior to anybody. Then what are we? We are not superior, we are not inferior. Then what are we? We are not even equal to anybody. We are not equal to anybody. We are unique. Each one of us here in this world are designer made. We are unique. It's better to be unique than superior or number one. When you are number one, you will never remain number one. Novak Djokovic is playing. Alright, number one. Isn't it? It's just, anybody know the result? Not yet. Alright, don't tell us. Don't destroy the suspense, right? That number, I remember probably about 25 years ago, Pete Sampras, number one, is gone. His record is broken. And then came Roger Federer, number one. That is all broken. Now Djokovic, number one. That will be broken. But to be unique. We are not superior. You're not inferior. You're not even unique. We are not even equal. We are simply, each one of us have a role to play. Therefore, Bhagavad Gita says, Mama Dharma. The first word of the first verse of the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita begins with the word Dharma. The last word of the last verse of the last chapter of the Bhagavad Gita ends with the word Mama. The entire Bhagavad Gita is sandwiched between these two words. Mama Dharma, my duty. Right? What is my duty in this world? Let me perform my duty to the best of my ability and keep quiet. But what happens? When we perform our duty, we feel ego, arrogant, complex, and we suffer the consequences. So prayer, meaning realize our duty and perform the duty to the best of our ability. That is, without expecting anything in return, that is when we are able to be humble. So the 4 pillars of prayer is love, gratitude, surrender, and humility. So when we cultivate these temperament when we are praying, that is when our sankalpa fructifies. Our thought becomes pure. Whatever you have wishes, you will find that is happening. And there is no ego and selfishness. That is how we convert our sankalpa into a reality. Alright? So prayer done improperly is very, very powerful. Alright? But when we attend spiritual discourses, satsang, those are the training ground where we learn to convert our thoughts into prayer. Everything. So prayer is not what we do when we are in the temple, when you are in the prayer house, when you are in bhajans and kirtans. When you are driving, you don't need a particular time to feel grateful, to surrender, to eliminate hatred. You can do it while driving, while talking, while eating, while bathing, whatever it is. So you'll find when you practice these 4 practices internally, every stage of your life we are praying. That is when we become a constant devotee. Remember, spirituality is not a part-time pastime. It is a full-time awareness of God. So when we practice prayer this way, prayer becomes complete. Right? On that note, I want to express my gratitude, Seelan and Vani, for hosting me in this many days in the UK. Every time I come, I stay with them, and thank you for your warm welcome all the time. And then they especially invited everybody. They don't need the certificate from me, but they're one of the most charitable set of people that I know in the UK. Thank you very much for this invitation. I say on behalf of everybody, thank you very much. Sorry. Those of you who want to listen more, I've written a couple of books and small pocket books also. And I've carried a few copies, literally sample copies. You'll find displayed, they're there for sale. Those of you who are interested, you're interested to buy those. It will help you in your, there are some very interesting topics. In fact, the topic that I spoke today is called 4 Essentials of Peaceful Mind. 4 Essentials of Peaceful Mind is Bhakti, Yukti, Shakti and Mukti. So what I've covered is Bhakti, one of the 4, right? Yukti, Shakti and Mukti is discussed there. So you may want to, it's a audio track that you may want to buy. Some of the booklets are 35 virtues to master your mind. I spoke to you about 35 qualities of a Bhakta in chapter 12. So those booklets are available for you to read through. What are the 35 qualities of Bhakta? And one of my books is called Value Systems for Success, and from gods to Godhead, describing why in Hindu culture we have so many gods, so many rituals, so many festivals. What is the science behind some of these rituals and festivals? What happens when you chant a mantra? So all these are discussed in that book. All right. When you invest in those, you're supporting the Life Mastery Foundation. All right. So you'll find it displayed there. Thank you.
Thank you. So we will take some questions. I'm sure many of you will have, after what you've heard, will have some questions for Angajan. Please go ahead.
So when you said when we pray, we should be demanding the God. So even when we are praying for others, we are still demanding the God, but not for us, for others.
Right.
So how do you see that? How do you see that's not demanding and this is demanding?
Right. Now, when we pray for other people, generally what happens is we pray for the people that are known to you, that are benevolent towards you. It could be your friends and family. That is still a prayer, P-R-E-Y, right? But when you genuinely pray for the welfare of the whole universe, then what happens? When you pray for the welfare of everybody, there are among the people that there will be few people who are unwell, right? But there are millions of people in the world who are unwell. Therefore, we pray for the welfare of everybody. Then the law of reciprocity works. The law of reciprocity means whatever you pray for the other people, you get it. So that is the way. If we don't need to ask. If at all you ask for the other people. And even when you ask, make sure that asking is not an egoistic asking, it is a sankalpa. Right? So how would an asking become a sankalpa? I explained to you. Alright? Love, gratitude, surrender, humility. And then, even if it could be a family member, that's okay. I have no problem with that, right? But then, when you don't inculcate these four, that also becomes a demand. When you have love, gratitude, surrender, humility, it just becomes a sankalpa. You know, see, Hinduism, Hindu culture prescribes specific prayer. You know, in the Ramayana, I'm sure you're familiar, when King Dasharatha, the king of Ayodhya, had no children. He married Kaushalya, she couldn't give him a child, a son. And he married Kaikeyi, and then Sumitra, still no children. Eventually, our Vedas describe what we call as Putra Kameshti Yajna. A particular yajna, particular prayer that will bestow children. So he performed, Vashishta, Kulaguru suggested that he perform the elaborate yajna, Putra Kameshti yajna, and the remnants of sacrifice, which is payasam, you know, the portion prasadam, the queens consumed. Alright, and there was little extra, and Sumitra consumed that extra and she got twins. Alright, so 3 queens blessed Dasharatha with 4 children. So our Shastras recommend specific prayer for a specific objective. But then, even then, the principle of true prayer is not compromised. Alright. So you have a specific, I mean, if you are, when you're undertaking, let's say, Graha Pravesham, you know, when you walk into the new, you built a new house, you bought a new house, we perform a particular prayer so that your house is purified, etc. That is a material, a worldly desire. But then, even then, that should be a sankalpa. Right? So every prayer has to be with, you know, whether you ask for the other people welfare, or pray for somebody else, which is okay. But it should be based on sankalpa. Okay. Yes.
Thank you, Angajan. That was absolutely inspiring. I honestly learned so much about prayer. Some of the aspects I did have knowledge about, but I think the way you explained it, I found it extremely helpful for my practice. I just want to ask you, you know, with the 4 things that you spoke about, love and gratitude, humility, and surrendering, you know, when you gave the example about, you know, if you think of someone, and that's like a pure thought, and then they might call you or something, you might have contact with them. So how can we simplify the 4 practices to something as pure as that? Because again, like similar to what was asked, you know, it's like again, we're praying, we're asking for something. So I feel that that's still like, you know, like we're begging for something.
Right.
So how do we?
In fact, when you ask, you only ask for the other people. We don't need to ask for yourself. Alright? When you really count your own blessings, you will realize, but I cannot ask for anything more. What I have received itself is so much, why do I need to ask more? Isn't it? And when you pray, you'll find everything that we need will be taken care of. You know, Bible describes so beautifully. You know, it says, seek the kingdom of heaven, and then everything else shall be added unto you. Seek the kingdom of heaven. Now, kingdom of heaven what I would understand that is, when you pursue a higher ideal, when you pursue a noble cause, all right, you'll find everything that you need materially will be added, will be taken care of. All right, there's no need for us to ask. But sometimes, like the gentleman asked the question, sometimes there may be a specific need to ask for it. But then, even then, all right, we need to make sure that ego and selfishness are the 2 factors that destroys our spirit. You know, when we walk into the mandir, when we walk in the temple, we leave our shoes there, isn't it? 2 shoes. Why do we leave the shoes there? That means we are leaving our ego and selfishness outside. Alright? When we walk into the temple, when we walk into the prayer room, when we walk into an auspicious place like this, right, we leave our ego and selfishness. Wherever we go. Now, this is not only for the temple, you can go into an office. Our workplace should be a place of worship, because worship is not only in the temple. When you're running your business, when you're working for a company, that is also sacred, right? So, I think I've adequately simplified in terms of gratitude, love, forgiveness, surrender and humility, isn't it? So, you try to understand 1 or 2 aspects of this, And you'll find that you are able to practice that. Is there anything more that you ask when you say
No,
simplify?
I think you've answered it well, thank you. And yeah, just the other two aspects, the ego. I think just before we came, finally enough, I was speaking to Fadi about ego, and you started speaking about it. So what's the best way to, I feel I practice humility, gratitude, and love, but the ego bit, what's the best way to sort of...
Yeah, ego is something that you need to address specifically, right? Because sometimes what happens is we don't realize in the process of humility, ego comes in. I am humble. I am grateful. That's why ego is a saboteur. Ego is such a deadly saboteur that you will simply don't know how ego creeps in and destroys.
Yeah.
And when the ego is controlled, it is one of the best friends. That is why in the Hindu tradition, ego is represented by cobra. Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva has got a cobra around his neck, live cobra, controlled, right? Cobra represents our ego. And ego, you don't need to destroy ego. You don't have to kill the ego. Ego is necessary. Sometimes you have to make assertion. You got to assert your ego. When Mandela said, in South Africa, having British rule, having put him in the white government put him in the prison for 27 years. All right. Why did he say that? Why did they do that? All that he did, it's my country. I have the right to be free in my own country. That's all he asserted. That is self-confidence. All right. I have the right to be free in my own country. Sometimes we need to assert. So therefore, ego, we need to learn to use it, not kill it. All right. If you don't keep the ego under control, even in the practice of humility, ego will slip in. Even in the practice of gratitude, you will find the underlying ego. Even in the very path of spirituality, we can be egoistic. Right? See, what happens is, you may be doing the right thing. It can happen to all of us. We may be doing the right thing. But when we see somebody else who's not doing what you're doing, we look down upon the other people. That is also ego. That is how ego, when...
How do you tackle the type of things?
Right. So the Shastras talks about the three yogas, alright? Karma yoga, bhakti yoga, and jnana yoga. And of course it talks about hatha yoga also, the yogas and exercises. So an intelligent inclusion of the three yogas, karma yoga, bhakti yoga, jnana yoga, that's all that we need to take care of our selfishness, negative emotions, and ego. When you read the 10 codes of conduct of Sri Sathya Sai Baba, you'll find it is a very intelligent inclusion of the three yogas. That's all that we need. If you are able to practice those, we don't need anything else to control the ego.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, please.
My question is, try to collect my thoughts and put it forward, but I apologize before I start. I think it's something that I really, really want to achieve, what you've been explaining. But this is very much dependent on the mind, and it is understood that if you try to use the mind to control yourself, it's such an erratic organ that you will be forever jumping around. You might be able to control for a few minutes or something like that, and then it goes back to what it's doing. So one of the things it is said that to achieve this, you need a guru's diksha in terms of the mantras, because that's the only thing that is gonna, you're not relying on the mind as such, but the power of the mantra to achieve our goal. And that's one question. But the other side is, let's say that we have achieved what you're saying, which is almost like an asymptote. You go towards it, but achieving it fully is probably not possible. On the other side is, we have this fear, like we have 1,000 years of subjugation, slavery as Indians. And there have been millions and millions of sages who have done what they needed to do for what we have today. Otherwise, we would have been eliminated. But we still have this fear because it's the strongest that survive. If we have achieved this, sorry to say this word nirvana, when are we going to deal with the forces of so-called evil and be protected in the future as well? Because I feel maybe I have got it wrong, that Paramatma will, once we have achieved this, that he will give us the right tools to protect ourselves. But I'm not sure of that, because we have 1,000 years of history, that it didn't happen all the time. It might happen now. Why now? I don't know. So, long-winded questions.
All right. Let me try and simplify the question. There are 2 or 3 questions in that. First one is that our mind is restless and you need the diksha of a guru to be able to control the mind. Yes. You know, I think all of us need a guru who will guide us, right? But then guru can guide us, but you are the one who need to practice. You know, the problem today is that most people, you know, on the spiritual path, when they find a guru, they surrender the guru and say, okay, you take care of it. I'll give you my guru dakshina, you take care of it. It doesn't work like that. We need a guru, no doubt. We need to have that reverence towards the guru. But ultimately, it is you who's actually the seeker, who's actually practicing it. All right? Guru cannot do what you need to do yourself. All right? It's like this. You know, one day you feel very tired and you call your domestic help and say, please do the exercise for me today. Nobody else can do the exercise. Physical exercise, you have to do it yourself, isn't it? Similarly, the spiritual practices, you have to do it yourself. But we need to have a devotion and reverence to a guru. Guru is a higher intellect, somebody who's evolved or one who reached moksha. Right? If you can't find somebody who reached moksha, somebody is far more evolved than you, towards whom you surrender and to whom you will go to for your guidance and advice, etc. When you don't know what decisions to make in both spiritual as well as materialistic decisions, right? Yes, guru is essential, right? But you have to do. Guru is like the signpost. In today's context, it is your GPS. It gives you guidance. You have to drive, isn't it? When the GPS tells you turn left, if you don't turn left, you're turning right, right? Or olden days, or let's put it this way, guru is like the signpost. All right, if you're driving from here to London, every few kilometer direction, so you take red direction towards to go to London, right? But what you're doing, you're stopping the car, coming out of the car, and worshipping the signpost. You know, most people worship the form of guru, worship the picture of guru, but they don't follow what guru is advising. It is more important to follow the guru's advice. And then, of course, you worship the form of guru or the picture of. That's fantastic. That develops a lot of reverence, right? The best of reverence towards guru is when we follow the advice of the guru. You cannot express a better gratitude to guru than that, number one. All right. So your point is right. In fact, Arjuna asks the same question in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, mind is like pramati, very strong. Right? It is restless. I don't think it's possible to control the mind at all. Arjuna asks the question in the 3rd chapter. Krishna says, you're absolutely right. All right? But by abhyasa, by practice, you can definitely control the mind. All right? Number one, patience. You know what does Shri Sai Baba says? 2 words. Shraddha, Saburi. You got to put in effort. Shraddha means that faith, devotion, commitment, and practice, right? Shraddha is loosely translated. There's no English equivalent. The loose translation is faith. Shraddha is not faith, it's much deeper than that. Right? It is your effort, your commitment, your dedication, Shraddha and Saburi, patience. Alright? Today what happens is a lot of spiritual people don't have the patience. They want to put in 1 week of effort and they want to see the result. Never happen. It's like you plant a sapling and every second day you pull out and see if the root is growing. It never grow. Alright? Effort and patience. Right? And you'll find significantly over a period of time the weakness that you had doesn't bother you anymore. Right? Secondly, nirvana. You mentioned the word, every one of, moksha, nirvana. Now, the word nirvana, moksha, mukti, it may sound far-fetched. But nirvana, what Vedanta talks about, is right here. Meaning, we want nirvana, we want mukti, we want liberation from the small pinpricks, small challenges that is bothering us every day. For example, when you're driving from home to workplace, another road user were to cut the lane, what happened to your state of mind? Right? You are angry, upset, agitated. We want freedom, we want mukti from these kind of problems, isn't it? You ordered, something from Amazon or whatever, and it didn't arrive on time. You get upset. I'm just picking an example widely, all right? We get upset for small, silly things. We need to gain freedom from these small agitations. If you are able to get nirvana from these, you are qualified for the ultimate nirvana, all right? So moksha, freedom or mukti means from these pinpricks, these petty things don't bother you anymore. Alright? So how do we do that? Vedanta talks about, or Bhagavad Gita talks about detachment. Detachment is vairagya. Detachment is one of the finest mental dispositions that you can develop. When you develop that spirit of detachment, you are already in nirvana. When Lord Rama left Ayodhya, overnight, you know the story, he was going to be coronated as Yuvraj, right? Overnight, his stepmother Kaikeyi demanded that her son Bharata should be coronated as a king and Kaushalya's son Rama must be banished to the forest. Alright? Overnight, he renounced the luxury of the palace and lived in the jungle, but his state of mind did not change. He was so happy in the forest as he was in the palace. Why? He was in a spirit of detachment. Now, we can practice probably a few percentage of it. And even if you are able to develop a 2% of it, that's a great deal to deal with our daily problems of life. So, we develop that vairagya through knowledge of Vedanta. So, that is nirvana right here. Alright? We want financial freedom. What is financial freedom? Most people misunderstand. Financial freedom means when you have enough passive income to support your lifestyle, you have financial freedom. But there are millions of millionaires in the world who have got money to live for many generations, still they're not financially free. You know why? Because they believe the financial freedom is when you realize that more money cannot increase your happiness. When you realize that the increasing money cannot increase my happiness. Yes, increasing money can increase your comfort, but it will not increase your happiness. It is the increasing or improving the quality of your thought that will really bring me happiness. That is when you gain financial freedom. That is moksha as far as money is concerned. Alright? Then we need time freedom. Today we don't have time freedom, do we? Do we have time to do what you're passionate about? Most people don't have. They're forced to work. They have to wake up in the morning and get onto the road at 6 o'clock and get to work and come back at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the evening. They don't have time freedom. Alright? As far as that is, if you are able to find time to do that is very close. And there are people that I know, they want to learn harmonium, tabla, they want to play God, they want to play music, whatever it is. We all have our own hobby, right? Then you are nirvana as far as time is concerned. Purpose freedom, alright? I've heard people talk, highly accomplished people, multi-millionaires, celebrities, stars. They feel so empty inside. Despite hundreds of millions of dollars under their control, despite hundreds of millions of followers, the name and fame, etc., they have got the beauty, the looks, alright? They feel empty inside. They don't have purpose freedom. Alright? Relationship freedom. We have our near and dear ones, our children, our parents, we are so attached to them. When our children leave our home becomes an empty nest. That shouldn't be. Alright? Children need to go. We are attached to our children, attached to our near and dear one. As a result, we don't have relationship freedom. We don't have nirvana as far as relationship is concerned. So when we develop that spirit of detachment, right, you enjoy a better relationship with your family members. You are able to invest time that you're passionate about, or you are able to use your time for worthy things. Your time, your money, all right. See, you develop what we call as abundance mentality. Today, most people, even multi-billionaires, suffer from scarcity mentality despite having money. And there are poor people, because their mind is so detached, they develop abundance mentality. They feel there's plenty because their mind is upon something positive. So that is nirvana right here. So Vedanta teaches that technique that we can practice nirvana right here. Yes, you pursue your dreams. You want to become a multi-millionaire in pound terms, no problem, pursue it. Right? You want to pursue knowledge, you want to pursue education, whatever it is. But internally, you feel so fulfilled. That is nirvana right here. And then nirvana is guaranteed.
So, does a guru come first, or does Vedanta, what you explained today, does that come first? Or is it
guru,
that you start on one, and when the other one comes, you take it and then
right. See, when you talk about guru, who's a guru? The word guru means gu plus ru. Gu means darkness, ru means dispeller, So guru is one who dispels your ignorance, right? So guru is one who's endowed with the knowledge of Vedanta, alright? And he or she lives Vedanta, and he or she has the willingness and the time to guide you. Right? That becomes a guru. So when you use the word, is one who's imbued with the spiritual literatures becomes a guru. Okay.
So my second question.
I thought, okay, is there one more
The second
question?
part was to do with, I said we can achieve, let's say we achieve what we intend to do, what you said. But then there is all this other negativeness. We can sit in our cocoon and we can become all this thing, but we are part of the larger world.
Right.
And as I gave you an example, 1,000 years of slavery, who is going to deal with that?
Right. Look, those kind of challenges will always be there. All right. Yes, it's a fact that there is slavery, but those slavery is not as bad as slavery of our own desires. Say slavery of our own senses. You're talking about, when you talk about slavery, the political slavery that you're talking about, right?
No, not actually existence.
Right, existence, right?
Yeah.
So the real freedom.
We were nearly wiped out.
Sorry?
We were all nearly wiped out.
When you say we all,
We were nearly all wiped out.
when you say we all, what are you referring to?
What I mean is, all the Hindus, or
Right.
Sanatana,
Correct.
were
Right.
nearly wiped out.
Sanatana Dharma
Not
will.
the Dharma itself, but the people who follow.
People follow that. I wouldn't say wiped out, but yes, we need to wake up. We need to realize that this is something that we need to take responsibility and preserve it. We can't say, okay, somebody else is doing it. I fully agree with you, right? But having said that, what does Sanatana Dharma want to accomplish? Sanatana Dharma is only telling us that you need to liberate from yourself. Your worst enemy is yourself. When Arjuna, Bhagavan Shri Krishna said in the Bhagavad Gita, Uddhared Atmanatmanam Atmanam Avasadaye Atmane Vatmano Bantu Atmane Ripiru Atmanaha. You need to raise yourself you need to lift yourself by yourself. Your own self is your own friend, your own self is your own enemy. Alright? So the most important freedom that Sanatana Dharma tells us is that liberate yourself from the slavery of your senses. At the moment, we are slave of our senses. Alright? Because when something that appeals to your senses, and if it is not there, we are agitated. The worst slavery is slavery of our desires. Celebrity of our senses. That is what ultimately Sanatana Dharma. So if you are able to live it, you will automatically propagate it to the other people. The best way to protect Sanatana Dharma is you and me understand it and we practice it. Alright? When we practice it, you will influence your family. When you practice it, you influence your family. When you influence your family, you influence your community. When you influence your community, you influence the country. When you influence the country, you can influence the whole world. So therefore, practice of Sanatana Dharma starts with yourself. You know?
Yeah, you mentioned about do your duty well. Yeah. So how do we find out what the duty is? And you linked it to purpose as well. When you just give the example,
Right.
how do you find the purpose? What you are here to do in this life?
How do you find your purpose and what is your duty?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's the same thing. Is it different things? I don't know.
Right. Talking about purpose, there are two things that we need to understand. One is our purpose in life, and the other is the purpose of life. Right? Purpose in life and the purpose of life. The purpose of life is same for everybody. The purpose of life is, as gentleman mentioned, is to reach nirvana, is to liberate yourself, is to reach moksha, is to discover yourself, is to reach God realization, whichever term that you want it, all means same thing. Alright? That is the purpose of life. That is true whether you are a Hindu or a Muslim or a Christian. Ultimately, every one of us are seeking happiness. Alright? And ultimate happiness is in realizing yourself. Your essence, your core self is happiness. That's why Bible said, seek the kingdom of heaven. And he also said, kingdom of heaven is within you. But we seek for that kingdom of heaven everywhere else. That is the purpose of life. Right? The purpose in life, that we need to start right from when we are young. What that means is, each one of us, every single one of us, are born to excel in one field of activity. Alright? All of us, there is one field of activity you can really, really shine, which Bhagavad Gita calls it Swadharma. Dharma means nature, Swa means one's own. Your basic nature. There is one field of activity that all of us are passionate about, we can excel that. So if you are able to identify that field of activity and guide yourself, choose a career based on that, then you are fulfilling your purpose in life. That verse, the 35th verse of the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, 47th verse of the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is exactly the same message, same verse. Alright? That is the only verse in the Bhagavad Gita that is repeated. Why? Because it's so crucial. 99.9% of the people in the world make a mistake in that. Bhagavad Gita actually begins with the 3rd chapter, ends with the 18th chapter. In the beginning it tells us, don't forget your purpose in life. Choose a career based on what your passion is. But most people choose a career based on how lucrative it is, how much money I can make, or social status. Isn't it?
Yeah, but if you reach this adult stage now,
right,
so you
I'm coming to that. Alright. So, you are parents or grandparents or whatever it is, you need to help your children to discover their purpose, right? And help them to guide, operate in a field of activity that is based on their basic nature. Alright? Now, having thus far, Vedanta describes the duty, karma. Alright? There are 3 types of duty: Nitya karma, Naimitika karma, and Kamya karma. Alright? Nitya karma is anyway, some people find it difficult. Okay, I'm already 30 or 40 or 50 or 60, whatever it is. Alright? I want you to understand this. When it comes to spiritual development, there is no such thing as age. Alright? Now, what we need to understand is that what is my nitya karma, my regular routine activities. Alright, we all have our own regular routine activities. We wake up in the morning, if it is Monday to Friday you go to work, evening you come back and you spend time with the family, and then weekend you have your weekend activity. That is your nitya karma, regular routine activities, right? Then you have naimittika karma, occasional special duties. Now this is an occasional special duty. You heard about somebody is coming to speak on a particular topic, right? And you come and you found it's interesting, you came. Or if there is a funeral in the community, right? It's your duty to go and sympathize with the family, participate in the funeral, or you get a wedding invitation. That's occasional special duties, all right? And then that is naimittika karma. And then you have kamya karma, certain desire-ridden activity. Let's say you want to take your family to a restaurant for your daughter's birthday or whatever. There's nothing spiritual about it. And nothing materialistic also. It's an enjoyable occasion. That is kamya karma. This karma must be fulfilled, says Bhagavad Gita. Alright? Nitya karma, naimittika karma, kamya karma. Now this is the broad framework. Now what is your specific nitya karma? Only you need to sit and decide. I don't know what your life is, what your duty is, etc. Isn't it? But I'm only giving you framework. Now this becomes your bounden duty. Alright? You cannot escape that. If you escape that, then you're committing sin. Alright? Nitya, naimittika, kamya. There are one set of people say, oh, I'm a very spiritual person, I'm not interested in any worldly desire. We can't do that. We're living in the society. We have desires. We need to accept that, listen, I have desires. And when you fulfill the desires in the right way, the desires get exhausted. You don't multiply your desires. And that's what we want, ultimately. Remember, 9th code of conduct.
Yes, yeah. So
And
when
that
you
is-
say do your duty well, then you just mean any duty, any of those karma, those 3 karmas you mentioned, do
Right.
those well. Is that
Right.
what you meant?
Yes, you need to program your life. All right. First of all, you need to ask yourself, what do I want to do in my life? You need to have a specific goal, and you need to write down your goal. All right, your spiritual goal, your health goal, your emotional health goal. Right. You need to write down, and what will take me towards that goal. And without goal, you cannot determine your duty. When you know what your goal is, and the goal will determine what your duties are. All right. Let's say, supposing you want to do seva, charity, right? What kind of charity you can do? What is the resource that is available to you? It could be time, it could be money, it could be skill, it could be talent, it could be food, whatever it is, right? This is the way I can help benefit the community, right? I want to operate in this particular area, and are you understanding? And then you go backward, all right? Then you will decide, okay, this is my duty. Somebody else may have a different duty. Right.
I see that, yeah. But so when you talked about detachment then, yeah? So from what I was hearing, is detachment not being attached? What exactly is that detachment? Is that saying I won't be attached to that, that's why I won't get affected?
Correct. Detachment, first of all, let me clarify if there is a misconception. Detachment is not running away from the society. Detachment is not saying, oh, I'm not interested in money, I'm not interested in buying career, I'm not interested in business. That's not detachment. Detachment is when you are able to do your duty perfectly, all right, without getting attached to the result or the outcome, right? When your mind is totally disconnected from the consequences, you are able to focus upon what am I supposed to do now, right? That is detachment as far as your duty is concerned, all right? To be able to do that, you need to get attached.
You need to get
You need to get attached. Right? Attached to what is the question? Detachment, in fact, strictly speaking, there is no detachment, there's only attachment. Alright? You attach to something higher. When you are attached to something higher, you will automatically get detached from the lower. Alright? When you are attached to a higher ideal, for example, this beautiful temple here, this shrine here, right? Now this shrine acts as a monument of a higher ideal, because this temple here is serving the spiritual needs of the people. It's serving the probably other needs of these days. Temple do not just prayer, they do a lot of noble humanitarian activities, right? So when you become a part of the temple, you are actually getting attached to a higher ideal. Why? Because this temple is serving the benefit of the community. So you are getting attached. See, the mind needs something to get attached. That is why in the Ramayana, mind is compared to monkeys. Alright? Monkeys have got three characteristics identical to the mind. Number one, monkeys are very restless, so also our mind. Our mind is so restless, our mind cannot remain in one place more than a few minutes. It keeps, I don't know how you concentrate for the last 1.5 hours. 2 hours nearly, right? Our mind keeps wandering. Similarly, the monkeys. Number two, monkeys are very possessive animals. Monkeys get very possessive about their little ones, babies. Even when a baby monkey dies, the monkey doesn't give up. It clings on to the carcass, right? Number three, monkeys are hoarders. They keep hoarding more than what you can consume, right? I don't think you have monkeys here, right?
We have magpies.
Sorry?
We have magpies.
Magpies.
Oh,
Birds,
magpies
birds.
or birds, right? I live in Durban, South Africa. We got plenty of monkeys, and I've done it myself. You pick up a banana, attract a monkey, all right? And the monkey will come grab it, all right? Grab the banana from you. Offer one more, he'll grab the other one also. Offer a third one, he'll grab the third one. Offer a fourth one, he'll grab the fourth one. By the time the hand is full, right? And then you offer a fifth one, he'll drop the third one. If you drop the fourth one, and come and take the fifth one, all right? You offer the sixth one, he'll drop the fifth one and come and take the fifth one. This is the nature of the monkey. Keeps holding. Alright? This is the nature of the mind. Now that is what we want to be free from. That is the nirvana. Right? For which just as monkeys get very attached, mind also gets attached. So if we use that nature of the mind to get attached to something higher, something nobler. Right? Then what happens is we develop detachment from the lower. What are the lower? The materialistic desires. The pity, the base desires of the mind. So, strictly speaking, you got to use the nature of the mind. The mind needs to get attached all the time. So you're giving something nobler, something higher, so that you liberate from the lower. Okay. Can we take this as the last question?
What were the two verses that were repeated, the reference please?
Yeah, verse 35 of the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, verse 35, 3rd chapter, talks about Swadharma. Shreyan Swadharmo Vigunaha, Paradharma Bhayava. The field of Paradharma is Bhayava. 47th verse of the 18th chapter.
Okay, thank you.
Right. The Life Mastery Foundation, impart this knowledge, that is our only purpose, So I travel around the world. So if there is more interest in the future when I am coming this part of the world, and I usually keep Seelan informed, and he is the one who invites me, I stay with him, etc. Probably we can have a constructive course, meaning for a period of 5 or 6 evenings, all right? So that you come and we attend the course for 1 day, and then you go back and reflect upon it, come back again tomorrow, next day, like that 5-day course. It's not, so we can do that in the future if there is interest, all right? There's no charges, it's fully for the interest of the people, all right? We could look at that in the future. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Angajan, for such an enlightening talk and lively discussion. So on behalf of everybody, I really want to say thank you so much for gracing us with your presence and sharing your knowledge with us. I also want to thank all of you for giving up your Sunday afternoon to come here and listen to Shri Angajan speak. And I finally want to thank Uncle and Auntie from the temple. Thank you so much for making the temple available to us to be able to share this knowledge. Thank you. We have some fruit, and I expected some children, so we brought chocolate, but never mind, you can all be children and have some chocolates too. And there's water, so please help yourself with some fruit and water and some chocolates before you go. And please feel free to have some discussions with Angajan if you have some question that you didn't want to ask in public, but please feel free to ask him and speak to him, because we'll be around here so we can get a chance to mingle and get to know each other better.